Hi all, before we dive into a new story chapter centred around the exploration of the Delta Quadrant, I think it's time we looked into some of the background of some of the key players for this next chapter, especially in the Klingon Empire. As the story series has progressed, I hope I've shown that the Klingon Federation War has been taking a back seat somewhat, as bigger problems begin to define themselves from the murk of history. So now seems a better time to look at this while it's still relevant. Also, a quick apology. I originally had a different video planned for today's STO, but a poorly timed Windows pop-up came up while I was typing and forced a 5-hour update during which I was unable to use my PC, so a little annoyed about the loss of work time there. Hopefully I'll be back on track for the next part. I'll also do a video on the Klingon War in its entirety sometime in the near future, but for now let's look at current events. After the uncovering of an intact 200,000-year-old Iconian Gateway on New Romulus, the system suddenly became a focus of the two biggest powers at this end of the galaxy. With diplomatic ties secured with the Romulan Republic by both the Federation and the Klingon Empire, they engaged in joint research with the Republic to learn from the ancient technology. In-game, we have to assume it's been a couple of weeks since we left the Romulan Republic to begin sorting out access to the Gateway. Since then, science teams from numerous factions, spearheaded by the Republic, have been learning from the advanced relic and think they've repaired and learned how to activate it. As we played a huge part in the discovery of the Gateway, Datan, leader of the Republic, has invited us as a representative of the Federation to be there for the reactivation of the gate. He also extended invitations to others in Starfleet and the Klingon Defence Force, with the latter sending their own ambassador, one Worf, of the House Martok. Naturally, I want to know who it is I'm meeting with, so let's do a background check on Ambassador Worf. As we know, he used to be an officer in Starfleet and served aboard the USS Enterprise NCC-1701D, followed by serving on Deep Space Nine. Then, at the close of the Dominion War, he returned to Kronos as Chancellor Martok's right hand and a Federation ambassador to the Klingon people. During the Dominion War, Grilka succeeded leadership of the House of Gozak, turning it into the House of Grilka. She pursued a relationship with a warrior named Janek and had one daughter, Corin.
Corin, daughter of Grilka, captain of the mighty IKS Bortescue and survivor of 100 battles.
Yes, that one. However, Janek was killed during the Dominion War. In 2385, 10 years after this event, Grilka would meet and marry Ambassador Worf. Chancellor Martok appointed Worf to the position of a general in the KDF after he resigned his position in Starfleet, and in 2387 he led a task force to stop the renegade Romulan Nero and his ship the Narada. Worf was unable to do so, with the Borg-modified vessel cutting through the assembled task force, and the survivors were allowed to convalesce on Vulcan. While there, General Worf was attacked by an Undine, species 8472, sent to replace the influential figure, but even being injured, he bested it, because Worf. Likely after giving it some lecture about being dishonourable. In 2388, he and Grilka had a son together, Kadan. While those who opposed Martok's rule and his more diplomatic approach to other powers used Worf's defeat to insinuate that the House of Martok was weak and unfit to rule. This pressure on Martok only increased as more and more Undine sightings and conspiracies crept up alongside attacks from the Gorn against the Empire. Martok is forced to pull the Empire away from peace negotiations between the powers being hosted by the Federation in 2391 and 92 over Ambassador Worf's objections, but it was not enough to retain his favour with the people, and in 2393 he was replaced by Chancellor Jumpok. Federation President Anik Okeg recalls Ambassador Worf to wait for the dust to settle from this regime change, while Jumpok waves away Federation offers to meet and instead opens dialogue with the Orion Syndicate to secure his position. Over the following years, the Klingon Empire routinely skirmishes with the Gorn hegemony, and by the year 2399, Jumpok takes the Empire to war with the Gorn in earnest, and the Federation openly condemns the action. Ambassador Worf, due to his familial ties to Kronos, is allowed to remain on the Klingon homeworld, but all other Federation representatives and officials are rejected. As the war escalates, the Federation does little to intervene, merely spouting treaty violations at the Klingons and Gorn and asking them to stop it. Ambassador Worf, for his part, continues to try to reopen dialogue between J'impok and the Federation, but is frequently overruled. In 2401, the Federation is still refusing to interfere with the Klingon-Gorn war, and many in Starfleet are questioning the Council's decision, with even an instance of mutiny on the USS Lindbergh when the captain attempted to fire on a Klingon vessel to protect the Gorn. Ambassador Worf, with the backing from Admirals Janeway, Chakotay, Crusher and Captains Dax and Tuvok, all appeal to the Federation to intervene in the war before it's too late, citing the Undine threat as real and that the Federation could settle the conflict by taking an active role in routing out infiltrators. This is opposed by Federation officials swayed by Ambassador Soketh's counter-arguments that the Undine so far, even if real, have yet to take any hostile action, and that the situation is too complicated to get involved with. In 2403, the Klingons' victory over the Gorn is absolute, and Emperor Kahless leaves the Empire with a hand-picked crew saying that they no longer need him, and that he will return when they do. A year later, the Empire, fueled by its successes, demands that the Federation presence in the Hiromi cluster be removed, as it is rightfully their territory. President Okeg refuses to relocate the citizens, and in return the Klingon Empire attacks the Korvat system, in a symbolic gesture of ending any diplomatic ties and the beginnings of open warfare soon thereafter. In 2405, General Worf becomes Gintak for Drex, Martok's son, to help restore the House to power in hopes to steer the Empire towards peace once again. And by 2409, Worf has continued to act as ambassador to Kronos for the Federation and has been working to re-establish his voice in the Council through the House of Martok. However, a setback occurred when Maven, Drex's son, was killed on Forecast 3 during a Batleth tournament. Now, as the war between the Klingons and Federation begins to subside, it seems that he has been appointed as the best choice to represent the Klingon people on New Romulus, as he maintains supporters in both the Federation and Klingon camps. He travels here with his stepdaughter, Corrin. Gathering around the now environmentally sealed and habitable subterranean gateway, we were able to overhear the Ambassador's concerns about reactivating the Iconian device.
You think you have corrected the issue? Consider what happened to the Dewans, and what the result would be if the Romulans lose a second homeworld. I have encountered Iconian Gateways twice before. In both those instances, the finest commanders I ever served found the technology to be too dangerous to preserve. It is difficult to believe that you have managed to do what they could not.
Legitimate concerns from an officer who was there when Iconia was discovered. Are there problems?
No problem.
Last time this gateway was activated, it led to the cataclysmic seismic events that rendered Dewa uninhabitable for the Dewans 150,000 years ago. However, we do possess technology that they did not, and have had more experience with Iconian technology than they did. Nonetheless, Kerrick needs to be absolutely sure there are no issues, so he asks us and Ambassador Worf to double check before we start up the program.
Acceptable. Admiral Kerrick, I want to start by reviewing your science team's work.
I'm sorry, did you need something?
We start by talking to Adrana and relaying a series of memorized power variance coefficients to her to help her finalize her calculations.
Are you able to find the coefficient numbers for me? Alpha is 14. Yes, that's correct. Gamma is 47.
Your numbers may be correct, but have you ever witnessed the power of one of these gateways outside of a holodeck? Well, I have. I was invited here to share my knowledge with those willing to listen. Even the best plans seldom survive contact with the enemy.
We also need to check with the engineering team.
Yes, they've been asking for the final power variance numbers.
Also down here we can find Dr. Eric Cooper.
Oh, the gateway? Fascinating.
We last encountered him with Admiral Tuvok's task force into fluidic space to deal with a Borg incursion against the Undine. Good to see he's doing well.
I appreciate you speaking up about your concerns.
We supply Commander Maik here with Adrana's numbers, which seems enough to allay his fears. It seems the maths works out.
Finally!
I agree that the simulations look promising, but I still have some concerns.
So do I, but we're on a deadline.
We leave the Ambassador to scrutinise the poor engineer while we run some more errands with the preparations for the power tap.
Perhaps we can find a solution that will ensure the safety of all of us. Show me your projections.
You know, last time I played with this machine I almost ended your civilization. I don't want to be remembered as Captain Hale, the second Hobus. Oh god, it's smoking. Is it supposed to smoke? Well, we're not dead, so I think everything's working.
The numbers are good, but something seems off.
Oh, you can't be saying that now.
Agreed. Sensor readings from the gateways I've encountered were significantly different than this. Could it be because of the power source you're using?
Readings like this make me wonder.
Mike goes on to postulate that this gateway might actually be accessible from another side, unlike the one-way gates that Worf encountered previously. We can pose the question that could there be something on the other side?
The numbers aren't saying that exactly, but it's a real possibility.
Captains Sean and Corin have been consulting with Kararek's security forces. I will ask Corin to deploy some of her finest warriors. I do not know Captain Sean, but he commands an enterprise. He must be a formidable man. He also has less enthusiasm for activating the gateway than others here. I am certain he has considered all the options.
How may I assist you?
In speaking with Captain Sean of the Enterprise F, he suggests that we prepare a security measure.
The team looks like it's almost done with the final checks. Make it quick. I'll admit I've been dubious about this project from the start.
Spatial charges. If Darcy were here, she'd be over the moon.
What are you... Ah, good idea.
We affix them to various points around the base of the structure so we can detonate them if all else fails. With that said and done, we're about ready to activate it.
If all the preparations are complete, I see no reason to delay. Initiating final power transfer.
Power output rising. Levels are within expected parameters.
Activating gateway. We've got a spike. Attempting to compensate. No good. Abort! Abort the mission!
Shut it down!
Detonating charges!
No effect! Get everyone out of the chamber! Into the gateway! Now!